So okay, thank you. So we are now on verse 9. And in verse 9, Philippians 4:9, it says here, I'll share my screen here. Share screen. Share screen. Hi, Pastor June.
Good evening.
Good evening. So here in verse 9, we can read again here. The things which you have learned and received and heard and saw in me, this do, and the God of peace will be with you. Also here in the NIV, it says, whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. So he's talking about all the things that he wrote, but for our purpose tonight, let's just review verse 1 to verse 8. But actually, the entire letter. But so here, if you remember, okay, he says that I love you and you are my joy and my crown. Okay, Paul has this attitude of being very relational, very loving. He's not only a theologian, but he's also a caring soul, a person who cares for his members. So he's a balanced leader. He knows and understands the members, the brethren, and he encourages them. He always encourages them. Stand firm in the Lord in this way, dear friends. Okay, not always on a corrective mode, but also like a encouraging and coaching mode. And then in verse 2, this is the only corrective, phrase in the letter. He pleads with them. But remember, the more important thing is to be of the same mind in the Lord. And you remember Philippians 2, where it says here, let's go to Philippians 2, being in the same mind of the Lord. See, it says here, having the same mindset as Christ Jesus. So here is emphasizing humility. Okay, he was humble, Christ was humble, and being a humility. So what he was saying here in Philippians 4 is that relationships should start with humility. Be of the same mind in the Lord, humility, humbleness. And so with that in mind, that would reduce what you call this, misunderstanding. That would reduce pride within the person. That would reduce anger because of humility, same as with Christ. And he asks also his friends, we do not know the true companion, but he asked Clement, one of his friends, to help Syntyche and Euodia be together and reconcile, because they are members in the church. And this shows the importance of community, the community of believers. In a group like us, we are here to encourage one another and to help and uplift one another. And it is good because spiritually this is a beneficial for all. And we discussed before the book of life, because this is so important. This is the assurance of salvation. And in here, verse 4, rejoice in the Lord always. So when you have humility, then we can rejoice. And that is one of the antidote for any quarrels or misunderstanding, being rejoicing in the Lord always. Okay, we rejoice. And being a gentle like the Lord, like Christ, because the Lord is coming and the Lord should be near us. And we discussed this last week, that do not be anxious about anything in our situations, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, meaning that we have faith that it will come, and we present our requests. This is a good thing, not needs, but requests to God. And we have and he says that we have to have the peace of God, because God will definitely answer our prayers, which transcends all understanding. And we know four answers, right, of prayers: yes, no, wait for it, and wait, I have something better for you. So if you have any if you have an additional answer for the prayer, tell me. Because those are the only four answers I know: yes, no, wait for it, or wait, I have something better for you. So all prayers are answered. And then we discussed this last time. Finally, brothers, what is true? What are the lovely thoughts? Think of these things. And so here he's actually he's encouraging the Philippians through his writings that they put it into practice, and then the God of peace will be with you. The God of peace, we already discussed this, but if you remember, it means completeness, wholeness. It's not only the absence of war, but it's a totality of peace and blessings also included here. Let me see the just to remind you the PowerPoint about peace here. Oh yeah, Eritreos by Daniel Sierrachea. Yeah, in the Old Testament, this is the literal translation of peace. In the Old Testament was the sum total of God's blessing to a person who belongs to a community. And in the New Testament, this is the sum total of all God's blessings. And in the New Testament, it meant absence of war, right relationship with God or Christ, and good relationships. So it's more about good relationships, because um, peace, having the right and good relationships produces peace. And we all understand that most of probably our trouble comes from misunderstanding and relationships. And relationships are the ones that get us into uh, trouble or sometimes misunderstanding, because they really affect us relationship with family, friends. But if we have a good relationship with God or Christ, then we can have a good relationship among people, because Christ in us gives us peace. He has forgiven us, he loves us, and so we can also do the same to our fellow men, because we realize what God has done for us. So that's how it is. So you now go to Philippians 4:9. It says here, whatever you have learned from me, okay, and the God of peace will be with you. So let's reflect on how to act on what we have learned. We are Christ's joy and crown. Christ's joy and crown. Have you ever wondered that whenever Christ sees us, he's happy with us? He not only likes us, but he likes our company. We are in what you call this, near to him, and he the word delights in us. So if Christ delights in us, then we should be delighted with one another, because if Christ delights in a person, then there's no reason why we should not be joyful with our fellow men, because Christ loves them. Humility, joy in the Lord, not anxious. So I'll give you a minute, and let's reflect on these things. If you have any comments on this verse, you can raise your hands, and I can see. Oh, yes, Pastor Bernie. Yes.
How is my microphone, by the way? Can you hear me?
Kind of low your microphone, sir.
I know I'm having problems with microphone. Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, it should sounds like you're 10 feet away.
Okay, go ahead. Don't worry.
Okay. So here, in this verse, Philippians 4:9, whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. Okay. Interestingly, the God of peace. So the word peace means sum total of God's blessings, complete, whole. It's more than just the absence of war. It is the right relationships with God, Christ, fellow man, and it's complete, it's whole. Okay, so if anyone doesn't have any comments, we can go to verse 10. Okay, verse 10 and 11. Oh, verse 10, verse 10. It says here, let's go share the screen. Oh, this is the NIV, by the way. I rejoice greatly in the Lord that at last you renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. Okay, before the Philippians church before gave an offering before, he will explain it later. So this is, I think, the second time he received a gift, or second or third, I'm not so sure, but he received a gift before. Here it says here in the NKJV, New King James Version, he rejoiced in the Lord greatly that now at last your care for me has flourished again, though you surely did care, but you lacked opportunity. Now, the meaning of you had no opportunity to show it. Um, he was very grateful to them, but he knew their situation because giving money in the old times is it's not easy. Today we just have a bank, right? And then we go Zelle or we do money bank transfer. But remember, they had to probably sell stuff, or they have some money and they kept it together. And then Epaphroditus said probably has to travel, and it's not easy to give money, and he has to hold it. And of course, robbers might be, especially if you're visiting prison and someone in prison, everybody knows, okay, you're probably giving money or giving some stuff. I remember a church member who in the old days was afraid of bandits, and so she always brings a plant, and the money is under the pot. She had, and so she's there and she sells pots and plants. But anyway, so he was very concerned. It's not easy to give money, and he knew the situation of the people in Philippians, and so but he rejoiced. So he's happy and he rejoiced because of what they gave him. Okay, so that is how he is what you call it, sensitive, or how he knows how he valued their friendship. And remember, he talks about joy, and then he applies it to himself. Hey, you gave me joy, but his joy is not selfish joy or self. He rejoices in the Lord. So sometimes when it's, he taught me a lot, Apostle Paul. He says, when you feel happy, oh, I'm very happy, you gave me this. But he says, I'm happy in the Lord. That's a different thing. He rejoices in the Lord. He rejoices greatly in the Lord. So he puts it in the way that, it's connected to God. And the gift of God makes more sense, makes more weight, and gives the opportunity, the sense of the giver realizing this is not only to the Apostle Paul, but this is also for the Lord. So he elevates it. So he knows how to elevate it and how to express his thanks. So um, Paul knows how to do it. Now, I'm going to go ahead here. If you will notice okay, let's go to 11 and 12. Let's go to Philippians 4, 11 and 12. Make share the screen here. Here, so we'll use the, yeah, 11 and 12. Not that I speak in regard to need, for I have learned in whatever state I am to be content. I know how to be abased, and I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things, I have learned to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. Here, if we can see that the Apostle Paul, he makes three steps here. First, in verse 10, he was happy, he was joyful. Okay. But then he knows that it is not only for his selfish gladness, and that's why he tells people about being humble, being conscious of Christ's help, of his Christ given independence, meaning that he doesn't just say, hey, thank you very much, I accept this gift. No, he praises Christ and he says, you know what, I know that this would be was hard on you, but hey, I know how to be content. I'm showing you that I am conscious of Christ's, what you call this, Christ's help, his independence, and I know to be content in whatever circumstances. Even if, and I am happy, he says, I am happy whatever happens. And here, if you read between the lines, it means I am not, there is no expectation from you guys to give me. I am not always expecting. So I understand your situation. This is not selfish gladness, but I am conscious of Christ helping me. However, in the end, he says, hey, I really like what you gave me, meaning he expresses his thanks. So he does not um, elevate himself, and he does not, just say or chastise them, but he understands the giver situations. Okay, so he gives an expression of thanks. So if you look at back at the what you call this, the verses, I'll use my PowerPoint. It says here, the NIV, I am not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances are. I know what is it to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in every situation. It is a state, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. So here he, first gives an expression of thanks. And it is not selfish gladness, but with a humble consciousness of, of having the independence and being able to be content with or without support, and be content whatever circumstance God has given him, who has placed me. And sometimes it's hard for a person to be in need and being thankful to God. But I believe, I don't know about you, but I believe a harder test is that when you are rich, when you are rich, it is a harder test for you to stay humble and still continue the work. Remember, he said well fed. See in verse, he says here, whether well fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. Sorry, whether living in plenty or in want. So these two are opposites. So to him, to Paul, it doesn't matter whether he's poor or rich, or whether he's well-fed or hungry, as long as Christ is with him, he has given him the strength. I will go in verse 30, the strength to do it all. And so by saying this, he understands the giver situation. He doesn't demand it. And this is what I like from him, is that there is no expectation. He reduces his self-importance and his need for attention. He says, rejoice in the Lord. So he brings all the attention back to God. And that's he doesn't have this attitude of hey, I deserve this, something, this is due me. I am your apostle, I am the one who what you call this, founded the church. Now I'm in prison, you ought to support me, something like that. Oh no, he's not. And there are many instances that he doesn't demand and everything. So, and this attitude is so humble. He has a humble, that he doesn't really seek attention in himself, and he says, I admire what you gave me. I thank you for it, and I really love you. But this I have no expectation. You give or you don't give, I still love you. Our friendships are not based on your support, or it is based on our relationship with the Lord. And these are the things that we can get from that verses. So let's have a few seconds where we reflect, and if you have some comments on that, you can raise your hands, and I will show you the verses later again. So let's have some quiet time to reflect on what he said here, verse 11 to 12. I'll show it back to you. Here it goes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Cecilia.
So there seems to be a balance and a clarity that Paul has about who he is and his value, maybe, that he can express gratitude for the gifts without, because it seems a very human thing to be, to be tempted to feel like I deserve it, or to think
You
I'm
owe
more
me.
important because they give it to me. I'm more important, or to sort of lose perspective on his Christ focus. And I have a question. What is
Sure.
I have learned the secret of being content. There are books that are written about the secret to real happiness and the secret to pure contentment. And what is the secret that Paul has?
I believe what he, first of all, yes, you are right on in your comments that Paul is, he knows the situation of the givers, and they are not rich, probably the Philippian church, or I don't know if they're rich, but he knows how much the effort they did. And the secret of being content is on the previous verses, the God of peace that transcends all understanding. I believe that is. So if you notice, Paul is building up. Remember, we started with same mindset, meaning, okay, humble. So the approach to relationships is humility, then rejoice in the Lord, joyful, and then what's the other one? To be thinking of good thoughts, and then and then so he's building up the thing, and then if you have requests to God, you say them, you believe in them with thanksgiving, then then God will respond to your requests, and then that leads to being peaceful, God of peace, and then being content.
Mhm.
So there is a gradual what you call this, ascending of, or a gradual steps, chronological steps on how to achieve that. Now here, it is being well fed or hungry, living in plenty or in want. Remember, he's still in prison. We may say that, I don't know, but prisons in the old Roman Empire are different from prisons now. Maybe he has some, probably he has some leeway, because probably he has some they give him writing materials, he was able to write, but we know he has a thorn in his flesh, and I don't believe they give him steak and chicken, or pasta. They probably just give him water and grain, maybe just basic, or um, I should have researched this. Or in some, I know in some prisons the prisoners are not even fed, so the family should provide food, right? Yeah, because
Mhm.
yeah, even in in third world countries, some, even not today, in some third world countries, the government doesn't feed the prisoners, or they
Mhm.
just give them yeah, whatever, so the family members are the ones supplying their needs. So this might be it. So something like that.
Mhm.
So and that's why the crescendo is in the verse 13, where people, where most of us know this phrase, and we all use this as a slogan. But if you know the background of the slogan, in the context of the slogan, or what, when Paul was writing it, yeah, he was addressing the Philippians, and they had problems with relationships, and then you were giving him a gift, and probably he really needed it, but he really didn't show that, hey guys, thank you very much. Oh, or he's not. Sometimes we can become overly apologetic, right? Oh, thank you
Mhm.
very much.
Mhm.
I cannot do this without you. Something like that.
Mhm.
You give praise to the person, and but here he's balanced. He that gives praise to he
Mhm.
gives thanks, but he rejoices also in the Lord for
Mhm.
them. So now he elevates it as saying, God knows, Christ knows what you're doing. And you just gave me a thought. I should include this in the offertory messages. Let's rejoice in the Lord. Yeah, because it's not only for the church. It's no, God is rejoicing. Yeah, so include Christ. Yeah. That's it.
Mhm.
Any other comments? Oh yes, Lena.
Um, Paul finds that his strength in Christ, his sufficiency, he finds it in Christ. And like when we go through a different trial and stuff like that, we know that you know it's trials that we go through are to test us and so forth. So we know that we're not going to be without trials, and of course Paul knew that, and he also knew that the Philippians, when they gave him a gift, they were what was it saying, that he was aware of their continual concern for him, that the Philippians,
Mhm.
Paul knew that they were continually concerned for him. So
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, you're right, Lena. He knew that concern, and yes, he says, in fact, that's the what you said, Christ, that's in verse 13. So we can go there to Christ, and all I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And this is the famous slogan that everybody, I use the NKJV because the NIV doesn't have the word Christ. So I'm biased. Let me check. I think it doesn't say the word Christ. NIV.
It says through him who strengthens me.
Oh yeah, yeah. Through Him who strengthens me. Yeah, He gives me strength. But in verse 13, it says, Christ who strengthens me. So yes, I am biased with the, okay. So I can do all things, as it says here, I'll remove this one. Through Christ who strengthens me. And yes, this is all things. So he is aware, Paul is aware, as you know, Dina said, that Christ is the one who strengthens him. He gives him the living power flowing through us or through him and making us fit for anything, all things. And we hear, I hear always this slogan, this phrase, but remember, the person who was talking here was in prison, and probably now I look at myself, probably I should only say this when I'm in prison. And really suffering like Paul, you know, he was in prison, and it's a strengthening within, a, you know, Christ who strengthens me. It's an internal and it's a godly strengthening within. And you know, Christ and are always the majority, the victors in the face of all foes. So this is what he's telling, and he's also telling the Philippians that, hey, you know, in your case, I know you are, you know, there are also some problems, some trials in the churches, and it is Christ who strengthens, gives us the strength to go through whatever we're going through. So the use of all things is that he is confident. See, again, confident. Paul is confident. All things. So there's no exception. There's no one thing that when you read Paul's letters, I mean, there's, you know, rarely are there exceptions, but when he talks about Christ, there are no exceptions. It's either, you know, with Christ you are a victor, or you are, you know, lack, or you lack. Yeah, if without Christ. And in today's world today, you know, what the as we discussed before, you know, anxiety, loneliness, and fear of the future, whatever your worries are, fear, anxiety, those are always, you know, if you have Christ in you, that he gives us the assurance that he would be with us, and he would always be in us to strengthen us. And so Paul is saying, hey, you know, this is what is all building up to this Christ who strengthens me. So there are steps: humility, rejoicing, having the right relationships, having the God of peace with us, right? And all of these things. So with Christ, I remember the famous saying, oh yeah, C.S. Lewis said that a man who has everything and God is the same with the man who has God. That's what he said. I remember that. So a man who has everything and God is the same as the man who has only God. Because God is everything, right? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that will relate to the other phrase. Or what is the what you call this? What is your gain if you gain the whole world and lose your soul, something like that. Yeah. So yeah. So this verse 13, this verse 13 is Christ will strengthen us. We have hope, and just imagine Paul who survived prison. So we are in a better shape. Okay. Any other comments? Can continue. Okay. Okay. So let's go to Philippians verse 14. share the screen here. Let's just go here, NKG. Nevertheless, you have done well that you shared in my distress. So now, did I mention that Paul is very relational and also sensitive, or he knows what, again, it's not easy to, give monetary support. So they have done well. Okay. So he's if you know, what you call this, the Lord's phrase, good and faithful servant, so something like to that effect. You have done well, and that you have shared in my distress. And he's now this one. Remember now remember the first time he gave thanks, right? And then here first he says, he gave thanks, and then he said, thank you very much, but I have learned, that I have to be abased, but and I have to be humble. But then he doesn't want to disregard the gift. So he sandwiches it again by saying, thank you very much. And but his way of saying thank you is this: you have done well. Okay, so it's very relational. And you have shared in my distress and my wants and my needs. And so he acknowledges that he has needs, and that is not bad. That is not what you call this. He is not hiding his deficiencies, or what he really needs. And so sometimes how should I say it? Yes, he's humble. He's humble or transparent. That's maybe the word. Humble and transparent enough that he accepts and he needs help. Okay. Sometimes we I've done this before too. I'm guilty. I overcompensate. Oh, no worries. I really, I'm fine. I don't really need your gift or something like. I'll make some lame excuse, something like that. But here, Paul is saying that, hey, I am, you have helped me, and I acknowledge it. His acknowledgement of the gift is to uplift the Philippians. So he's very relational, and he's again thanking them. Okay. So in verse 15, now you Philippians, okay, this is the history. So this is the beginning of the gospel. Remember, he tells them that he received, concerning giving, receiving, but you only. So they have helped before. So this ties up with the first verse, the other verse where they were not able to. So Philippians has helped before. Okay, and he was grateful for them, and he is telling them that even in Thessalonica you sent aid again, once and again, for my necessities. So this might be the second or third time. Okay, so Philippians is a giving church. So now he emphasizes now in verse 17, not that I seek the gift, but I seek the fruit that abounds to your account. So now he expresses thanks, but he expresses the relationship. Okay, I'm thankful for for you thinking of me, or for you being my friend, my joy and my crown. Remember, he says here on the first first verse, my joy and my crown, for helping me. And so you can see how Apostle Paul masterfully writes in a way that he acknowledges the gift, and he really also emphasizes the relationship, the friendship. I believe in some, it says here, not that I seek the gift, but this one in verse 17 is NIV. The desire is that the more to be credited to your account. Yeah. So in some commentaries or observatories, is that the relationship is more important, right, than the gift. In other words, the giver is more important than the gift. Yes, same with Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ, the giver, is more important than the heaven, eternal life, peace, no more tears, you know. And so sometimes there are times when I hear, I know in the Philippines because I've been there. I hear people emphasizing the gifts. Oh, you follow Christ, we follow Christ, because unfortunately sometimes in the third world countries they're poor and they are lacking, and so their hope is in, no more tears. We will be well fed. We will have eternal life. No more pain. No more suffering. And that is important to them, and that's true. But if you overemphasize the gifts, you must be balanced, or at least emphasize also the giver, which is Christ. So, um, because Christ has all the gifts. Without Christ, none of the gifts will come, right? So yeah. So sometimes we have to emphasize the giver, the relationship, the one who saves you. Okay, and that's what you can see how Paul is writing. So he understood the importance of the giver, and in a way, remember, he's always praising the Lord and praising Christ. Okay. Do you have any comments? If not, additions, subtractions, multiplication, division, nothing. Okay. So let's go to verse. Where are we now? Verse 18. Go to verse 18. Okay. Here, indeed, I have all and abound. Aha. Why do you think he said that? I have all and abound. Now, sometimes it's contradictory. Wait a minute. I said here, you help me in my distress. Oh, I have some needs. Now it says, I have all and abound. Is that a contradiction? What do you think? Or is he speaking of something different? Well, if you read between the letter, it's already says here, yeah, I can do all things to Christ who strengthens me, and everywhere I have learned to be content. Oh, where's that? Oh, yeah. Here, or I have learned to be content. So that's what he's saying. You can. So there's no discrepancy here or contradiction. You can be both. What do you mean you can be both? You can be contented and satisfied with Christ and yet be wanting physically. Right? You can be in prison, persecuted by the guards, or mistreated, or you have like Paul, you have a thorn in the flesh. When you wake up, you smell flies buzzing, miserable, but you are content. It's a state of mind. So in Christ, the God of peace, it's your circumstance does not dictate your contentment. You can have both. Your contentment is not based on your circumstance, which is a hard thing to do. I will admit that. Yeah. Now everybody. Yeah. If you have pain, yeah. So yeah. So pain and what's it called? This problems. Oh, man. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to be content and to have faith. That's why he started with be humble, rejoice, and that's why I believe the verse here. What's the verse here that he says here that verse 6. Be anxious for nothing. Let's go back to verse 6. So you see, if you tie it all in, so you have to tie it all in. So this is the things. Be anxious for nothing. This is verse 6. But in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. But did Paul get out of prison? We know he was what you call this? House arrested, but he went back to prison. But yeah. So that's it. And but maybe all his requests were not answered, but he had the peace of God. He knew that it will, even though whatever he is, whatever situation, even though he didn't understand, um, it will guard our hearts and minds. See, yes, why were my requests not answered? But he would meditate. Then he said he would meditate on these things, whatever true and good. And he knows that Christ is faithful. In the end, Paul knows he will be saved. He will go to where Christ is. So he's not afraid to die, meaning to live and die. He will be with the Lord. So uh, yeah, there's no much. There's some difference. You can stay here on earth longer, but the destination is the same, to be with God. And so whether he lives or he dies, he is in the Lord. Okay. Now, but he also says here in the same phrase, I am whole and abound, but he says, he again acknowledges. So you see, Apostle Paul knows how to play with words, right? He says, oh yes, I have all and abound. And if you are a reader, yes, because of Christ. But he says, I am full, having received from Epaphroditus the things sent from you, a sweet smelling aroma, an acceptable sacrifice, well pleasing to God. So again, he says, thank you very much, but I appreciate, acknowledge your gift. But then where does he go? He sends it back to God. He gives the glory to God, a sweet smelling aroma. And of course, if you are all familiar with the Bible offerings, in the Old Testament, when they offer sheep, goat, rams, all of this, they are sweet smelling aroma, an acceptable sacrifice. This refers to what's his name again? Abel's sacrifice when he gave offerings. Yeah. So well pleasing to God. So back to him. So so if you give Paul offerings, he praises you and says, these are for God and what you did. And in verse 19, again, he pronounces a blessing. Okay. I'm on Zoom, Anika. Anyway. Okay, so, and my God shall supply all your needs according to his riches in glory by Christ Jesus. So, here it says here, he's pronounces a blessing, and he knows that God will supply all your need. But he's wise because it says the word your need, not your requests. Okay, your need. So if you need a Tesla, then God will supply it probably. But if you need transportation, yeah, he can provide you with transportation. Okay, anyway, so my God will supply all your needs according to his riches in glory by Christ Jesus. And we know that God, or Christ Jesus, is a giving God, and he loves giving, and he blesses you according to what you, whatever you sow, you reap according to what you give. And so he ends it here. Now to our God and Father be glory forever and ever. Amen. So this is the end of the formal letter. Okay, and the formal letter is this that one. Now to God be our glory. And then here is the in every letter he has the last 2 or 3 verses like a formal greeting and blessing. So these are the saints, like ending the letter, specifically to those who are to the people. This is specific to the people. So this one is the general letter. Okay, and so he says here, greet every saint in Christ Jesus. Okay, the brethren who are with me greet you. So this is the standard greetings. All the saints greet you, but especially those who are of Caesar's household. And so commentaries say that there may be servants and Also, it's surprising to know that servants, if you have their own servants too. I thought that if you're a servant, you can't have a servant. But if you are, let's say, if your master is like a general or some of the higher classes, the servants are treated well, are paid well, and they can have servants. So we do not know if they're the first tier servants or maybe the second tier servants. But and when you say Caesars, it may mean, a distant relative. It doesn't mean only direct line of Caesar. But but what we know is that particularly women, there are women who are more maybe what you call this, more mentioned and may have been part of Caesar's household. And he says here, the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you all. Amen. He ends us with the grace meaning God's gift, God's sacrifice. So in all, he thanks everyone. He mentions Epaphroditus, okay, and he gives the glory back to God. That is forever and ever. So whatever he receives, whatever blessings he receives, he gives the glory back to God. Thank you, God, for the gifts. To him be the glory. So he doesn't what's the term I'm using? Hug, or doesn't accumulate the praise, or he doesn't but he gives it back to God who deserves it. So that's the end of Philippians. If we have any comments, questions, concerns, so in all, it's a very good chapter, and there are some key verses here that people always like verse 13, I can do all things through Christ Jesus. And also verse 7, and the peace of God which surpasses all understanding. So 7:13. Those are the things. But what I learned here actually is in the verse 2 when it says, "Be of the same mind in the Lord." This is what really got me. See, be of the same mind in the Lord, and what does that mean? Same mindset. Let's go here to having the same mindset of Christ Jesus. See, so let this be mine, which is all Christ Jesus. This is another verse. And being humble. See, this is another sermon. And humble too. Yeah. So that's it.
All right.
Humility.
Yeah, thank you, Ezra. That was good.
Okay. Thank you. So you guys have any comments, suggestions, or thing? So what I've learned here is that the approach to relationships is first humility. Just be humble. Don't, because pride is a heavy burden. It can be easily get jealous. It can get easily hurt, right? Or if you don't draw attention, it seeks attention. It doesn't. If I think I don't deserve it, or I was slighted, oh, the pain, oh, the jealousy, the heartache. Better drop it and just be humble. And so if nobody praises you, or nobody sees what you're doing, it's another scripture says God in secret sees what you're doing, right? So yeah.
Thank you, Ezra. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, appreciate it. This chapter is very rich. There's a lot of popular quote or verses that we always quote. So
Very, very rich.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, everyone have a good Christmas, good holidays. Stay safe, be joyful, be
You
humble.
too. You too.
Be content.
Be content. Yeah, be content on whatever Christmas gift you receive.
And remember the value of unity. Remember the value of
Yeah.
unity.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also learned not to expect anything.
Mm.
Yes, and that's one of the hardest part. There is no expectation.
Yes.
Yes, and yeah, you know what? I failed to mention that. No expectation. That's hard too. That's very hard. Something from something, right? Especially Christmas.
Yeah, it's hard this season.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, we have the greatest gift already. And
Yes.
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 Yep, it's true. Okay, so if that's it, then say yeah. Thank you very much. And so this is the end of Philippians 4. So
You're
hello,
welcome.
Pastor
Thank
Michael.
you.
What book
so
are we
what's
going
next?
Yes.
Well, yeah, in January, we'll start a series on the Gospel of John.
Oh, good.
John.
That'll be
Yeah.
good.
Okay.
So there's a lot more in there than I understand, but we'll start with it.
Same here.
All right. Thank you, Ezra.
Great, we'll see you.
Thank
Thank you
everyone.
all. Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you,
Okay.
Ezra.